Even I'm not old enough to be available when it came out, but it was the first DVD I bought, and there I hear our headphones coming up, so we're live.
Hello.
Molly Divine.
How are you?
Good. Are we afternoon officially? We are.
Yes, we are.
6 past midday as we record this. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too.
Thanks for joining us.
I'm so excited.
Dunedin, I feel like today we've had the dynamic duo, the local Dunedinites coming through who are bursting beyond the Dunedin shores to the world of entertainment. Playwright came up before Emily, and now you making big splash in the music world at the moment.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
But we're gonna. As we just came in, I just saw a headline. Rutger Hauer, who's one of the main actors in the movie called Blade Runner, which was first DVD I ever bought, had just passed away.
Oh,
which was sad. But they said, is it right, Jace? They said he passed away last week, but it was only released today, which is
right.
It's pretty good for the family to keep it on the DL for that long. So.
Yeah, because usually that's a mission to do that. Yeah.
But I clicked on a link, and the link said that the internet is being mean. You know, Aquaman, Jason Momoa.
I do, yes.
You're starting to smile when I say that name, Jason
right.
Momoa. Most women do. That he's been teased by the internet because he's now got a dad bod. And I said to Jace, I bet you he'll still look like a Greek Adonis, even with this dad bod.
Me too.
Have we got the photo, Jace? Should we bring it up? He looks like an All Black. That's
Where's
people.
the dad bod part?
Well, you know, maybe you haven't quite got the abs he once had.
Do you know what I think it is? I think he's breathing in.
You reckon?
Yeah, I think he's just using his breathing muscles, and they've caught him at a bad time. You know, he's like full capacity breath, and as soon as he breathes out, like, we'll see all the definition again. That's my theory.
But even he looks incredible.
He looks incredible. I mean, look at his face.
You could, yeah. You could. I mean, I was just thinking, you know, the All Blacks are being named at the moment. That he could be a lock. He could be a forward. He looks like he's. So apparently the internet's going crazy about this because he's not attractive enough at the moment for some ungodly known reason. You know those muscles on the side?
Yeah.
The ones that are kind of at the top of the pelvic bone?
Yeah. The obliques.
Do you know what they call those?
No. Obliques? No.
Yeah, but you know what they call them in colloquial terms?
No.
They're called the dick root.
Oh my! Right. Well, he doesn't have one of those at the moment.
Well, he's got one on the left-hand side, I guess.
Yeah, you can get lost though, so he needs another one.
I think it's hilarious. But actually, you're a musician, and this kind of thing...
That's a beautiful segue from Dick Root to me, a musician.
Well, actually, it's more about appearance, and it's more about... It seems to be a part of the entertainment industry that, you know, the way someone looks and...
Right.
You know, you look at the X Factory type things. It is interesting how, you know, the more attractive people... are often the ones that happen to be more talented as well. And you know what I'm saying? It's like you can, especially for women, you can get there are many male musical artists that aren't oil paintings, but in the female world, that's often a very different scene.
Particularly in the pop world.
Yeah.
I think in the alternative music world, actually, there is sort of a movement where people are trying to... perhaps not attract into, I guess, sensuality or even like appear like they're trying, you know. There's this sort of like, that's not important, it's about the music, which I think is really cool.
Yep.
But in the pop world, it's definitely about...
Oh, but in saying that, in the alternative world, right, I'm thinking of alternative artists right now, and I can't still think of any female alternative artists that are particularly unattractive.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a little bit like... You know, people who have won 10 Grammy Awards and they go, oh, I don't do it for the awards. Or people who have $40 million in the bank, I'm not an artist for the money.
Right.
But you know, to say, oh, you know, it's got nothing to do with, you know, imagery and body image, but they're already attractive. It's like, what does it really mean? I mean, there's not that many Susan Boyles coming out there that aren't your traditional pop, you know, look of attractiveness. I'm not saying she's not attractive, but I'm just saying your typical kind of look.
Yeah.
So it's easy to say we're not about imagery if you're kind of already gorgeous. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
I mean, I wonder about all those artists. I never do it for the awards that have got 4 Grammys. That if they had no Grammys, would be going like, I wish I won a Grammy.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure because I do see what you're saying, that there is, and I actually think part of it, a big important part of music for me is the visual side of it. I mean, I love having I personally think writing music to film is like such a amazing thing to do.
So you think of the visual imagery as well?
Yes, and often when
wow.
I'm writing a song, I can see the whole thing. You know, it's like in this part I'm here, in this part I'm here, and not necessarily something that I'd have for like a video or whatever, but that's how I see it, you know?
So you have, I've heard Lord, and I can't think of the name of the condition.
Oh, kinesthesia or something.
She sees colours.
Yeah, mine isn't so much colour. It's more like places, I guess.
So you get it, but you do get a visual reference to when you're writing and performing music, like when you're coming up with songs.
Definitely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example?
Well, I guess for someone like you, that's the single that I've got out, because I'm thinking of a song that people can go and listen to, because a lot of the songs I've written, they cannot yet. For someone like you, I have very specific colours in mind, and they're actually the colours that I've used in the artwork. So it's like these sort of neon blue, and there's kind of red, and it's very saturated, really bright colours. And that was definitely intentional in going to do the artwork. Yeah, there we go. So really saturated, and that's sort of how when the beat came on that I was writing to, I could see that kind of world. And it as you can see in the background, like, yeah, it's not necessarily a place. Like, it's not like somebody's house.
You can't identify where it is.
Yeah, but like, it's got a feeling about it. And that was really important to me when I went to the visuals, that I was portraying that feeling, because that is probably going to be the first encounter with my music for a lot of people. Like, if they're coming across me online, they're going to see it, and then they're going to listen to it, you know, unless they're listening to it on radio or something like that. The visual is going to come first. And also, like, maybe I'm listening to somebody on the radio and I kind of want to know what they look like. So I'll go and I'll Google and I'll check out their music videos, and it gives you a whole different perspective on them. So going back to what you were saying about, like, sort of this, everybody's beautiful in the music industry. I agree. And I think some of the beauty might be traditional, you know, they have a nice symmetrical face, whatever. And some of it is very much in the production around that as well. Yeah.
That image we just saw, is that all as it was? Did you set it up, or is that photoshopped to change the background, etc.?
It pretty much looked like that, but it was projections in the background, and then we brightened it quite a lot. Yeah.
I was just saying, Jace, the fridge of many things. You don't have a drink yet, do you?
I have my water in my water bottle, my trusty dandy reusable water bottle.
I know what Jason wants.
Oh, Pepsi.
Okay. Yeah, I have a Pepsi.
Oh, you know him well.
Thank you.
It's our fridge of many things. And speaking of, like, artistic people, our new photo in the background.
Oh, beautiful. St. Clair. Yeah. I love that spot. St.
Clair. See-through Window Studios. Local artists that put stuff up on our walls for us. They're do you know these guys? They're window cleaners. And so they're always out at really interesting times of the day. Mm-hmm. And they get the most incredible photos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If people want to find out more about them, that's their most sold image. That's the what's it called on the corner?
Esplanade.
Yeah.
Sinclair is they can go to our Facebook page and have a look. We'll put some links up there. They're pretty cool.
That's
though.
Awesome. What are they called? Sorry.
See-through windows.
See-through windows. Okay.
Just look up STW Studios.
Yeah, STW Studios.
I love that idea.
Yeah. So they're a professional window cleaning group that also take photos and do stuff. And
wow.
I think the guy was saying that almost their photos are almost taking over because they're getting more and more commercial photo gigs. It's almost taking over as an entirely another business.
Wow.
But look, I mean, I was going to say appearance of artwork. You know,
yes.
Things that look beautiful seem to be things that are attracted by people that are drawn to people. It's a little bit like there's some research that says the older children in a sporting team. So you know how, like, when you go to school and you have kind of a 12-month gap of ages of people in your school.
Yes.
So you have someone who turns 13 in that year, but you also have someone who turns 14.
I was really young in my year.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And if you look at all the successful athletes, the ones who go on to be All Blacks or Silver Ferns or whatever, they're all the older kids.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be the odd exception, but there is some research that says massive amount are the oldest kids in the year, because of course what happens, especially in sports, is that they mature first. Mm-hmm. They get their physiques first. They get their strength first. They get through that kind of uncoordinated stage first. So in their year, they are better at sports, which means then they get the opportunities to be in the top team.
Is that why I'm the best at sports out of all of us?
You're
because
the
I was the oldest in my school.
Well, there you go. You must be amazing.
And then because they get the extra help, they're selected by the rep team. And because they're selected by the rep team, it's a snowball effect. And I want, so this is my tacit connection, you know, the people who are good musicians and attractive, as they're younger, maybe get an opportunity that maybe others don't.
Right.
And then because they get an opportunity, they advance. And so then when you get up to the American top 40, it's all these people who have had these opportunities, in part maybe because of the way they look, like the athletes are because of their age. Yeah,
I 100%. I can't say that I know that for a fact, but it's what I believe. Yeah, because you see things like in basketball teams, the people that are told they have the most potential when they're young are the tallest ones. So it's like, you know, and like that's about all they've got over everybody else, is that they're tall, and then, you know, they're going to get into the best team, and because they're in the best team, as you said, it just snowballs on. And
if you're in the best team, you have the best opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that happens in all aspects of your life. You know, I see us as little empty shells that just go and life takes you, you know. So I don't know how much control we do have over those things. So
yeah, interesting. So do you think are you thinking kind of in a fate way, you know, that there is an ordering to our life? What are you saying?
I think so. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm any sort of God, but I feel comfort in thinking about things that way, because you know, I wrote a song when it's actually, you can find it online. It's called Puppets, and it's a good
music video for that one.
Oh, you like that one? Yeah, in Oamaru. That was so much fun to do that. Here we go. So the words are, imagine we are puppets on a stage, puzzle pieces in a play, thinking we are wise, like superheroes of the Milky Way. And it's just sort of like we're being taken on a journey that we're witnessing, and it's like going to a really good movie or a really good play, and you're just there, and you might be an extra in the background, or you might be the main dude, and it's all a beautiful play.
But puppets on a stage implies someone else or something else is pulling the strings.
Yeah, it does. And to me, like I don't know that I believe in God, so I'm not like, oh, it's God, but there's always something, like you said, like being tall, that pulls you one direction, or having a nice symmetrical face might help you in the music industry, or things like that. So and what I think, I get comfort from that idea, because it makes me see that even if really awesome things happen, I didn't cause it, you know, it just happened, you know, so I can't be really.
But what you're saying there sounds slightly different to me. If really awesome things happen, I didn't cause it, sounds like I've got no control. And I don't mean this in a bad way, because there are people who believe that your steps are ordered for you, you know, like as in it's a predestined kind of future we're walking into. Whereas to think, is that what you're saying, or is what you're saying that there are so many environmental issues that come up in this one situation, there are many things out of my control? Because that's slightly different, because that whole kind of predestination, I have no control, that means in theory I can walk down the Princes Street, put my hands over my eyes and walk across the street because it was predestined for me. Whereas my thing is I can take some of my own intellect and observations and still control somewhat of my walking across the
What happens if
across the road?
What happens if the all-powerful being knew that, and your personality was that ability to question, and so they knew that you would then therefore walk out in Princes Street with your eyes across your road, and they had already chosen which number bus was going to hit you.
But that's what I'm saying. That's predestination, kind of that I have no control over my thing.
Right, because I think in the way I think about it is you wouldn't put your hands over your eyes and walk in front of the bus,
Yeah.
you know, because of things that have happened to you in your past, you know, like that's how I would see it.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that, fate, like I know like everything to the end of time is just going to play out the way it is. Because I don't know, there's that thing called entropy that you know, that maybe there is some sort of randomness in it.
Yeah.
But like I don't know how much we as humans can alter that.
So would it be fair to say that you are in the initial stages of starting to break through to the next level of where you want to be as a musician? I mean, profile-wise?
Oh. Huh.
I mean, you've just had opportunities on things like RNZ, and you're getting opportunities outside sort of the local music scene. You're starting to, it would appear, stretch a bit further. Would it say that this is the time of your life that's starting to come?
Well, that is the trajectory that I'm hoping for. I've got an EP coming out next month, and I'd love for people to hear it.
Yep.
So yeah, I hope so. That's sort of where I'm.
So then my question to you, talking about this, I didn't do that, is why are these positive things starting to happen to you now?
To now?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly the reason why, but I can tell you things that have helped me get here.
Yeah,
you know?
totally.
My family have been so supportive.
Who's that? Who's your whānau? Who's in there?
I've got my mum and my dad and my brother, and so they've been so supportive of me as a musician, because being a musician is a crazy career.
Yeah.
It's a weird industry. Super weird. And it takes a long time to get anything done and all those sorts of things. They've been very patient. So I'm very grateful to them.
Yep.
To all my music teachers, you know, and also the university. I worked a lot with Graham Downs.
And you studied music at university?
Yes, I did. Yeah, so I did undergraduate, then I did my honours in studio production and contemporary composition.
Oh, cool.
And then I did my master's in performance. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, I got that to thank.
Yeah.
And I've met a wonderful mentor. Her name's Paula Yearman, and she works for a PR company in Auckland, and she's really helped me to connect with really awesome producers that have brought out things in my music that wouldn't have been brought out if I hadn't met them, and all those sorts of things.
Having a mentor who also works in PR is pretty handy.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Well, she's doing the PR for my EP coming up. So it's awesome to have her, and she's so helpful and so honest, and her honesty has really helped me. You know, I brought some music to her about 6 months ago, and she was like, it can be better. And so I met some new people, and it is now, I think. You know, I think her honesty really helped me to break everything that I was doing down and start again in a lot of ways, and find a new perspective. Yeah, plenty of things. Everything in my life, I think, has led me to
How much of it do you think... I'm sorry, I'm still on this kick about how much control we have. It's interesting.
I love... This is really... I've had... I remember I was at a party, and I said that was my view, and the party was going really well, and then everybody got really upset because... they wanted to have control.
That you kind of had no control.
Yeah, they were like, I don't like that thought. I love having control. And I was like, oh, it brings me so much comfort to not have control. Well, so it was really funny.
So then my question is then, how much of it is purely you and your skill set? I mean, obviously you're a skilled musician, and you're including singing, etc. So you have no control, but you have skills that still make that outcome possible. So how much of it is you, and how much of it is this entropy around you that you've got no control of?
Well,
because I couldn't do what you're doing because I don't have the same voice or musical ability. So there must be something about you,
right,
that is in the equation. And if there is something about you, sure, you've at least got control of that. And you've got control of your performance and your your music writing ability and all that side of it.
I think because of what's happened before in my life. So, for example, I told mum and dad I wanted to do music when I was 2. I was like, that's what I want to do. And they were like, cool, whatever. It's probably not going to do that. But, you know, they were like, cool. And then started piano lessons, started singing lessons. They were great. They never sort of told me that sounds bad, even when it really, really sounded really, really bad. And I know upon reflection on listening to videos. And from that, I think I've created a skill set that I wouldn't have had if I had a family that was like, don't do music, you can't make money from it, and that sounds really bad, you know? So although that might have encouraged me, I might have been a rebel and been like, yes, I'm going to do it, and I might be even better now, who knows? But, you know, so that's the journey that I've had, and that's why I have the skills that I have, I guess. And I'm really grateful that I have them. And I can see exactly where they came from in a lot of ways, you know. Are
you still an independent artist, or have you been signed?
Independent, yep. So self-managed. Yep. As I said, I'm working with a PR company though, which is awesome because I've been self-managed forever and haven't worked with PR companies, and it makes a real difference.
The independent thing is really good at the moment as well because you have all the control. We had Tom Francis in last week, who's just done some recording with Snoop Dogg.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so he's an independent New Zealand rapper.
That's awesome.
And he came in 10 days ago or so, Jace, and we had him in having a chat. And the independent label that he's got, so he's independent, it means that he's able to organise tours with him and his crew, and there's no one else dipping their hand in, and you know the door is his. And
well, the label takes, like as pretty standard, is the label takes 80% of the master recording. So that's 80% of the money that you're making from your recording goes directly to your label. And then that 20% that you have to split in other ways because your producer's going to want some of that. Sometimes the songwriter. Yeah, you don't get much when you're signed to a label. But you do get a massive distribution pool that you can dip into, which, I mean, I'm not saying being signed to a label is bad.
Yeah, of course.
No, it'd be awesome.
Because all those labels watching now have just turned off. No,
exactly. No, like it would be awesome, but there's also huge things you've got to look at when you go into it, and you can get really screwed over as well. Yeah.
If you have a 5-year plan of entropy.
Is
that? Do you think? I guess if you were going to quote unquote make it. You know, at some stage labels have to be involved, don't they?
Yeah, well,
even if it's for distribution.
Yeah, I think that's often how, like, labels are rarely signing artists now to develop them. Indie labels, that is. Like major labels will develop artists from when they're born, you know, and they'll invest money into that. But indie labels are more likely to invest in you after you've already got the product.
Right.
And
so you already own it.
Yeah. But they will take some ownership of that when they start distributing it.
Really?
But yeah.
I had a few, it's a few years ago, but I have a few many friends who have been in bands. One of the bands in particular that I come to think of is a band called 8 from the 1990s, maybe early 2000s. And they did it all themselves. Early 2000s. They did it all themselves. But they signed for distribution only.
Right.
And I thought that was a pretty interesting way of doing it. So they were using the label to get their gear out there, to get their music out there, but they still own their music themselves, which seems to be. I mean, the money seems to be at the moment in touring and then not necessarily airplay, but just play. So if you own the music, it's where the finances can come from.
Yeah, I think in New Zealand it's about I don't want to get these numbers wrong, but the highest amount of money comes from streaming.
Yeah.
But you don't know in that how many of that's going to, I don't know, Lord. Like the huge New Zealand artists are probably taking most of that.
I had a friend of mine tell me once in his band that I told him I was going away for the weekend, and he went, we'll put our song on loop on Spotify and just leave it playing all weekend. And he goes, by the time we get back, I'll be able to buy a cup of coffee. I was like, is that it?
Yeah, 1 million plays is $8,000.
1 million plays is $8,000.
Yeah, and then you got to split that all the different ways.
So in other words, 1 million plays, $8,000. So 1 billion plays is $80,000. No, that's 1,000. So
I think
100
80 million. Is it $80 million?
Oh, okay.
Which is pretty good if you got to, yeah.
If you
think about it, like I think a music video is going to cost you a couple of mil if you're Taylor Swift. Let's say you're getting a billion plays. You'd have to be like, probably more like Ed Sheeran. I don't know if Taylor gets a billion plays at the moment. He'd put a lot of money into the music video, the amount of money that goes into distribution.
Yep.
He's probably made 50 songs and he's chosen one, so every song's going to cost him 50 grand. You know, like, you don't...
Although of all the people out there that have a good business model, he does.
I'm not saying Ed Sheeran's not doing well.
No, but seeing him at the stadium, like last year, I took my kids along last year. It was their first big concert. And, with his loop pedal and that just one guy on stage, no backup, no, other band. Yeah, he's got the business model. That's the way to make your cash. You're the only person on stage.
Yeah.
And he do his entire show by himself with just loop pedals and backing tracks.
Yeah. No backing tracks.
No backing tracks.
So drum machine, like was a drum machine for
no
drums
drum
and
machine.
stuff, or, so there's no drums.
No, but he'll put on the loop
and then record that into the loop. And
so everything that was on stage, everything that was performed on stage.
That's even more impressive.
Yeah, was done through his loop pedals.
Because I've had muso friends do that at gigs themselves and live loop their own songs in, and that in itself is impressive.
And he's probably the best in the world at it. So, yeah, very impressive what he does.
Do you think kind of good on him? Or do you kind of go, I want to be able to do, or is it a mix of, is it inspiring or is there a bit of jealousy there or how does it work?
Well, I know, because I don't actually play guitar. I play piano.
Yeah.
So looping has never really been something I've been that interested in.
Yeah.
But I watch him and I'm like, that's awesome. That's impressive. So probably more inspiring.
Who else inspires you? Who are those artists out there? Like, let's say you could open for a couple of artists.
Sam Smith.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh, I love what he's doing at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, I've fallen in love with his dance phase. I just think he's got this real amazing, desperate... Oh, it's epic. He's got a new song out like a couple of days ago and I just want to meet him. I think he's so cool.
And he's got an Oscar. That's not bad.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
And he's just awesome.
Yeah.
We just have to wait for him to come to New Zealand because I'm pretty sure they have no muso mates that if for any international act, a part of them playing in New Zealand, they have to have a New Zealand act open.
Oh wow!
Not it doesn't have to be because often you have two openers for big shows.
Yeah.
So they have to be the first one. They have to be at least the first one. They could be the second one as well.
That is awesome.
So they could be because they could be touring with a band that'll open for them, and they'll be the second act. So the first act has to be a Kiwi act. I think that's right.
Is that right? I remember seeing
that's awesome.
The last time I saw U2 at Ericsson Stadium, Kanye opened for them. I don't know if there was a New Zealand act before Kanye.
There was probably like when everybody was starting to dribble in through the gates. Right. It was probably a New Zealand act.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that was
that's still great, though, isn't it?
Last year down here at the stadium, it was 660 opening for Ed Sheeran, and they were awesome.
So awesome. Yeah.
So who else? Sam Smith?
That's the thing, because in the last year, I sort of had a sound change. I went from real alternative to I wanted to write more pop music. I liked the structure of the songs, and I wanted to challenge myself to write some sort of really catchy, dancey music.
So, but was that like you felt stylistically it was time to change, or was a part of that business model thinking better chance of reaching people with this style of music?
It comes into a bit of both, because I think I of course wanted more people to listen to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I had some ideas that I really wanted to share. So I was like, how can I do it in a way? Because the way I was doing it, I'd just done a master's degree. I was real disturbed about the planet, particularly like the patriarchy. I was like kind of a raging feminist and everything was terrible. And I wasn't feeling so good about the world. So the music I was writing was real obscure and a bit
dark.
Angry and dark, and
you wrote
then
a jagged little pill.
Yeah. You know that like you see people that have just finished university and they're like just real bothered. They're bothered about everything. They've just realized that stuff is wrong. So that was my phase, and that's the music I was writing, and I kind of started to feel a bit better.
Yeah.
And
what, the music was lighter? Was
just me myself.
Okay.
I started to feel better, and I didn't feel so angry, and I could see there's people in this world doing good things, and what's the point of me being angry, really? You know, I think anger can sometimes be a good catalyst, but I wasn't feeling like the art. I feel like the art was for me, you know, and I was like, no, I want to be able to share something positive, because I was feeling more positive. And so I started to think more about creating a lighter sound. Then I started working with a producer in Wellington called Nick Brinkman, such a cool guy, and he started to put some cool beats behind it. And then I was like, oh, and then I started to get into dance. Like I was really loving dancing, and particularly sort of free, ecstatic, crazy dancing. I'm doing a static dance teacher training next week and everything. I'm really into dancing.
What's static? Because I think about static as in stationary.
Oh, like aesthetic.
Aesthetic.
Yeah, aesthetic. So it's like very free movement.
Okay.
You start and then you just slowly start moving, and then you go crazy, and then you sort of wind back down again. It's beautiful. It's so much fun. And I love, like, to me, when I go to a concert, that's where I really take away that huge rush feeling, ecstatic, excited atmosphere. You know, I'm thinking of all my favorite concerts I've been to, and that's the feeling you walk out with, you know, like just so light. And yeah, it's an awesome energy that you can get from those sorts of places. And I was like, how can I write music that can encourage that feeling? So that's when I started to add more of a dancey feel to it, and I'm building that even more. Like this next EP I've got coming out next month, it's got cool beats in it, like particularly when it's live, and I've got some really cool gear, so the sub's massive, you can really move to it, but I'm thinking of progressing that even further and further, and really getting into the body, the feel of the sound.
So when you're live on stage with that particular gig or show, is that live band, or is that using backing tracks and you know, drum machines and that
it's
kind of thing?
It's a mixture of both. So I've got live drums, and I use like samples. It's sort of like DJing,
right?
Through a software called Ableton, and so we sort of cut and mix the songs together, and then we also have a few live synths that so like some keys and a bass synth.
So it's got a little bit like Lord's backup, because she basically just travels with the keys and a drummer.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I think it's because electronic music, when it comes to a live setting, sometimes misses that humanness. So that's why having a live drum has been really important to get that, that sort of wild feel back into it. Yeah, and it's really helped. But then definitely a lot of the sounds that we're creating are best if they are quite similar to the original. And so that's why using the samples and that has been really, really good. I think it's created quite a massive sound, which I am into. Yeah.
Why do you think you were really angry or dark, or whatever words you were using, when you're at university? Was it anything about what you were doing, studying? Like I'm thinking about the environment at university these days. You hear stories, and I am not saying it's accurate, but you hear stories about, you know, people having the weight of the world on their shoulders. This particular generation going through university being slightly entitled and wanting to save the world, but not knowing how, and you know. Leaving jobs because they haven't felt satisfied in their outcomes. What was it? Anything that you can identify that you think why you came? And I'm using the phrase you came out feeling angry. It's sort of what you said, but I am paraphrasing, obviously.
Yeah. I think in some ways I did come out feeling angry, and it's not like, oh, university's terrible. I'm really glad that I had that time to sort of open my eyes to what was happening in the world. I mean, when you're at uni, you're constantly engaging with quite heavy intellectual material and all that sort of stuff, and it is quite a liberal atmosphere. Well, the circles I was hanging out in definitely were, so that's good. And yeah, I mean, when I was working with Graham Downs, he got me reading like Nietzsche and I don't know how to say his name. Some people say Nietzsche, but I've always said Nietzsche anyway.
I think everybody says it. Like there's two schools, basically
cool.
Nietzsche or Nietzsche. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm going to go with Nietzsche. And Borges, just real sort of dark philosophy, fascinating stuff. It was where I got a lot of these ideas about, particularly from Borges, like that we don't have much control. He's got this awesome body for it called Labyrinths. If you're interested, because he takes it from all different perspectives, that maybe, worth a read. Fantastic. You're just thinking a lot, you know, and you are kind of in a bubble, and you are in this position where you're like, I'm one of the most fortunate people in the world. I get to go to university. I did most of mine on scholarships and that sort of like, well, my honors and masters were on scholarships. I was like, what a fortunate person that I get this. And I was living in a beautiful house. And this is just my theory, is that you feel responsible, you know, to fix things, because you're like, I should be able to do that. And, if anybody can,
you should be able to fix things
like the environment and like the patriarchy and oppression and, you know, everything. You just feel like it might be your fault. I don't know, in some sort of funny way. And
is it like first world guilt? Why
maybe,
me? Why here?
And I think that's a funny thing, because then you get these people that I guess people call them, what do they call them? The PC police or whatever. And they're like, oh, they're just so offended by everything. And I think the thing is, they are, because they've just got this understanding and they want to help. And I think it comes from a really good place. And everything they're saying is true, you know. But sometimes it's not a very productive place, because it's like anger, as I said, it's a good catalyst, but nobody likes to be told things, you know. So if you're angry about something, you're going to be shouting a message.
Well, it's interesting, I always wonder about what we are afraid of and what we're concerned by, because, you know, there is a thing that anger is appropriate if you should be angry. There's righteous anger. You know, if someone was to harm one of my children, I would be angry, and it would be appropriate for me to be angry. Yes. I think the fear...
It would be inappropriate for you to not feel...
It would be inappropriate for me to be... If someone harmed one of my children significantly, for me to be like, oh, well, that would actually be the inappropriate response. Being angry would be an appropriate response, but then it comes down to, what do I do with that anger? How do I outwork on that anger? And I guess from other parts of it, when anger is not appropriate. So it's like isms or, you know, ideologies or, you know, emotions. I think most of the time, and I won't say always, because what will happen is someone will get on the Facebook and go, well, what about? And they'll be right.
Right.
But most of the time, it doesn't seem to me that any of those sorts of things are inherently wrong. Ideologies is a good example. Like, for example, political systems are a good example. You know, capitalism, communism, you know, socialism. At their core, if you look at their core dictionary definition, none of them appear terrible, but we as human beings get in there and fuck it up. And we're the issue, as opposed to the ism or the ideology or the emotion.
It's the individual, isn't it? It's the I am a liberal and I believe this, and sort of using your ideology to build yourself as a human instead of to build humanity or build all humans, you know?
Well, and the problem is, as an intellectual, or I won't even use that word because that implies academic, but as a smart human being, as a person with a brain, anyone would agree that you can't be right 100% of the time. It's impossible. And that means, therefore, your ideology can't be right 100% of the time. That means sometimes you're wrong. But when you adhere to an ideology, especially fervently, you always think you're in a position of being correct.
Right.
And it's interesting, you mentioned feminism, for example. You know, any kind of ism like that, and I'm not picking on feminism, whether it's, you know, any kind of group you're aligning yourself with. When I say you, I don't mean you, I mean one. One's aligning themselves with has this idea. And the example I always give is I wrote a piece quite a long time ago called Ideology versus Intelligent Debate.
Right.
Whereas I had written a piece that was speaking out against a particular union.
Right.
And the reason I wrote the piece about it was I disagreed with something they were doing. And I got called a right-wing fundamentalist and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But what people didn't realise, or what they chose to ignore, was several months before that I'd written another piece supporting a union. It was actually the teaching union, NZDI, because I disagreed with something that was being forced on them. So in this case, I supported a union.
Yeah.
And then I was a mouthpiece of Helen Clark, a left-wing lunatic.
Right.
And in this one, I said, I don't like what this union's doing, and this is why. And I was a right-wing, fascist sort of person. And the problem is, when someone takes that position, they're taking their, of accusing me of that, they're using their ideology. And surely, I said very clearly in response to some criticism that I supported this, I didn't support this one union on this one instance for these reasons. And I think when people...
And then they've put a label on you,
which I don't care about. People do that all the time.
Yeah, they do.
And
they have to. That's how they people understand things, isn't it? They're like, oh, it's like this. I'll put it in this box.
In the last conversation we just had earlier this morning, I identified in that conversation as a far left-wing lunatic, a libertarian, and a right-winger, all in the same conversation.
Wow.
Not that I am any of those things, but the views I was espousing would have been seen to be those sorts of views.
Cool.
And I think someone who's an ideologue or a zealot in whatever the field is at some stage by definition going to be wrong, because I don't think anyone can be right 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So I always wonder when I have these kinds of conversations with people, and again, this is more, we're talking now theoretically, it's not about the examples you've given, but when has that person been wrong? And is this one of the instances that your ideology is wrong? Because you can't be right all the time. The left-wing ideology, let's say on environmentalism, can't be right 100% of the time. They might be right 95% of the time. I don't know. But it's impossible to be right 100% of the time.
Yeah, and as soon as it's wrong, the whole thing gets put into question.
Well, the other thing is, as soon as it's wrong and they start fighting against the other answer, which might be right in this instance, then that all falls over. I would much rather see people be able to be more independent in their thought process and kind of go, what's the best outcome this time? Rather than go, this is what my ideology says, so that must be right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you still consider yourself a feminist now? You said
100%.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
And what does that mean in this day and age? Because there's been 3 waves at least of feminism.
Yes, and I think fundamentally it all comes down to seeing femininity. I was going to say feminine traits. No, femininity in general in all aspects as a positive thing. So I think that
let me just repeat that so I'm going to be clear on how you were describing it. Seeing femininity in all traits as a positive thing.
Yeah, just femininity in general as a positive thing.
Define femininity for me as you're using it in this context.
Define femininity.
Yeah.
So
because I'd really like to understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, so femininity to me, I think femininity to a lot of people, different people can mean all different things, and that is absolutely fine. Yeah, and I think the point is, if it's seen in a negative light, then that can have major repercussions and offset balance. And all sorts. But to me, femininity is, I guess, things like empathy would be a feminine quality. Also, and I'm not, and by femininity and masculinity, I'm not talking about femininity is for women, masculinity is for men.
So it's men can have feminine attributes.
Yes, exactly.
Women can have masculine
they
attributes.
Do, and they do, yeah. So just some. I'll give a couple of examples. Empathy and nurturing qualities. Let's say
more typically a female than male quality.
Yeah, well, more our feminine qualities as opposed to masculine qualities.
Yep.
It doesn't really matter if it's male or female to me, because that's where the conversation gets real sticky. And it's like, oh, that's not the point. I think, let's say something that really I see a lot in my life and in New Zealand is the effect of toxic masculinity.
Sure.
And of course that mostly affects men, but from as a woman, it also affects you because it's often the men you know, particularly close men that are close to you and things like that as well. So toxic masculinity would be men not being able to show empathetic or nurturing, or let's say not being willing to cry, because that's more of a feminine quality, you know. So
right.
and if they can't cry, the effect that has on their lives. And
so that's interesting. You're saying that from this perspective, toxic masculinity affects more the man
Yes.
than anybody else. Because often I've heard or I've read that often when you talk about patriarchy, toxic masculinity is often thrown in there as an oppressive thing over
yes.
women.
Yeah. So definitely, maybe, yeah. So I'm thinking when I say it affects more men, that the problem is in the man. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, so
it's
it
not
affects
necessarily
men more than women, but the outworkings of toxic masculinity affects everybody.
Yes.
Gotcha. With you.
Yes. Sorry, that was not clear. So yeah, and exactly, and this is where it gets really sticky because, when you start putting all these labels on things, it's really easy to trip up, and then people get confused, and people think.
Well, that's why we do things like tell me what you mean by. Like I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you to explain toxic masculinity, but you explained it anyway. So because I think it's one of the things we want to do here. It's the Department of Conversation. We converse. Is we have the space. We don't. There's no adverts.
Yeah.
There's no need to. Oh, look, your 8 minutes is up. And as much as I love Jesse Mulligan, there's no ads to throw to at the top of the hour, sort of thing, and no criticisms. But you know, we can spend the time and figure this out. One of the things I've read and enjoyed most of all, enjoyed is the wrong word. That implies I have enjoyed the outcome. Have been most interested in at the moment is the backlash against some historic feminists like Germaine Greer at the moment from within the feminist community, and the whole conversation coming through about. Where does the role of transgender women fit into the feminist community, and this new term called TERFs? Have you heard of TERFs?
Oh, I've come across it. Yeah.
Trans exclusionary radical feminists.
Oh, okay. You know, I didn't know about that.
Yeah. And so
I saw a meme about it.
It's like what's her name? The tennis player Martina Navratilova coming out making some comments about, you know, transitioning men to women shouldn't be playing tennis. And then her being accused and abused of being a homophobe. And this is a lesbian woman who has done more for the, you know, LGBTI community than anyone in her field. Germaine Greer being accused of, you know, all these things, where she was a second wave feminist who was one of the reasons that feminism, you know, exploded like it did in such a positive light. It's a fascinating time to sit on the outside and look in and see what's happening amongst the I don't know if you call it the feminist movement. What would you call it? That people who identify as that and perhaps adhere to it in a public way at the moment. It's really interesting.
Yes, yeah, vocal feminists. Because I personally believe, unless you hate women, everybody's a feminist. You know, like they don't have to call themselves that.
But again, we go back to what we said before. At its core definition, feminism. Correct me if I'm wrong. But feminism to me is about men and women. Women are equal to men and should be treated equally and are equal under the law. And there shouldn't be any kind of, this maybe talks to the patriarchy, but there shouldn't be any kind of benefit to a man in society that is not to a woman. To me, that's first wave feminism, but at its most, you know, simplistic, that's sort of what feminism, and as you say, so therefore if you believe that men and women should be equal, you're kind of a feminist.
Yes, exactly. So unless you're like, no, women should, you know, do what I say, then you're a feminist. And even if you think that, there's probably parts of you that are a feminist, you know, unless you think women shouldn't exist, you know, and then
shouldn't exist, because if women didn't exist,
really
it'd be hard for the rest of us to exist.
It would. So so I think everybody's going to have, particularly, let's say they have a daughter, they're going to be a feminist.
Well, everyone's got a mother.
Well, there you go.
You know, literally everyone, even if they don't know her or if they never met her, they had a mother by definition, because you couldn't be here without one.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's
for
an
now.
idealistic, right?
now, yeah,
That
for
is
now.
so true.
Yeah,
Oh my
for
goodness.
now.
I wonder what will happen to feminism in the future. But yeah, I don't know if that's idealistic to think that every person in the world, because I haven't met every person in the world, there's probably a lot of people that I would be shocked by. But in my life, I haven't come across any. I've come across people that have been like, I'm not a feminist. And then they've explained to me why they're not a feminist. And it's things like, there's way more women teachers. And it's like, yes, that's a problem that feminists are looking at very closely, you know. So like, it's just a misunderstanding of the terminology.
There's probably some ideologies, be they religious ideologies or whatever, where, you know, women are subjugated, which might actually mean that, you know, women are considered second-class citizens, which you could probably assume the word feminist doesn't apply.
Yeah.
But I'm not just religious ideologies. There's probably all sorts of ideologies that consider that. But yeah, if you were to say that from today onwards, the definition of feminism is, again, because I don't think it is a definition of feminism anymore. And I think if you look at first world countries, there is some research that says people are moving away from that term because perhaps it's like the pro-choice, pro-life conversation. That has become those two terms, I think, have moved away from a belief system to a political terminology.
Right.
And it's getting caught up in that.
Right.
And I wonder if it's a bit the same as feminist, for example. It's become more of rather than a way of standing strong and saying we are equal, it's now got other, you know how words evolve. It's evolved or devolved, whichever the case may be. Maybe, and look, I'm not the person to perhaps speak to this, but maybe into more of a political movement or a vocal, I'm just trying to think, like a lobby group, more of a lobby group type situation than a rights for women type situation. I don't know. Yeah,
because I've got to be careful here when I say this, but because I think feminism is the most amazing thing in the world. I think it's really, really important. So I'm not saying feminism shouldn't exist, but what I'm saying is, as soon as you put a title on anything, it creates like a duality or an us and them kind of situation. And I think particularly when you're talking to somebody who's not a feminist about feminism, or says they're not a feminist, and they hear the word feminist, they're like, I don't know so much anymore, but I remember actually when I was young and I first heard the word feminism, I was like, nah, but boys are cool too, you know. Like, I didn't get it. I was like, I don't know, like, why girls have to like be better than boys. Why
do they have to have a special group?
Yeah, exactly. So
let's do manimism. That's better.
Yeah, manimism. That's so hard to say. I love it. Yeah, so like, and I think that, of course, to bring unity, that duality has to be pointed out. Mm-hmm. So I think that is the value of feminism, that it's not saying everything's all good, because it's not, you know, and it's looking at it and it's put a name on it, and it's a really challenging name for a lot of people, I think, because of how it sounds, and particularly so I think, let's say you've just done a degree at university, you've come out of that and you've learned a bit about feminism along the way. A lot of people have no idea how intelligent they are at that point. They don't realize how much they know, you know, and then you hear things like, oh, but men should be researching these things. They should know. And it's like, they don't know what they don't know, you know? Of course. So I think,
Let me just say first, if people are hearing some whirring and banging stuff in the background, if they're listening online, I don't know if the mics will pick it up or not.
Oh, yes, they're picking it up.
Okay, just so people know, there's some construction going on in a studio further down from us here at Petri Dish. So we apologise for that, but you know, it doesn't affect the marvellous content of the conversation that's going on at all. The feminism thing as well, I was just thinking about the patriarchy and feminism and men running the world and stuff. What about, I mean, your area is in the music industry. Do you see a lot of control by sort of men in that area? Or is that something today more so than it used to be?
I can't talk a lot about what it used to be.
Yeah, sure.
I would say it used to be a lot worse. From what I understand, like if you were recording in the, well, you think about the bands that were around in the 70s and the 60s, they were dude bands, you know, and not like necessarily the artists, but let's say most of the bands were like all men, and the producers were definitely all men,
sure.
and the managers were all men, because I think that's the thing. You look at the top 50 now, and you're like, oh, it looks pretty even, you know, there's like girls and dudes.
But who's behind them?
Yeah, that's the disturbing bit. Like the amount that pretty much none of them are produced by females.
I'm just thinking, I probably know personally 10 to 15, you know, studio techs,
right?
Producers,
Yep.
All men.
Wow.
I don't know a woman that works. I mean, I'm not saying they're not out there, but I don't know a woman that works the board in the studio at all.
There you go. There you go. You should meet my friend Maddie Parkins Craig. She would love to come talk to you. No, but
that's a date.
There you go. She's a fantastic producer, and there's actually work being done in that area. I know in Auckland there's a program now for female producers, so encouraging females to get behind the desk and that sort of thing, because that's a huge area that
it sounds like that actually sounds like it could be I mean, sorry to put on my marketing hat, but a business model. I mean, like a female studio space. I mean, surely there'd be a different vibe and a different sound.
Oh yeah,
that would come out with a female tech and a female producer and a female artist.
That's the thing. It's like there's so much that's being missed because of that. Because if you were to say, oh, everything's fine, you're saying that women can't and don't want to express themselves in that way.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know when I've got behind a desk and I've been mixing and producing stuff, I've got to say really awesome things, you know, and it's just think of all the people that are missing out on that. And so I'm excited for the future, because I think in the artistic musical space, something really exciting and new and inexplicable will come.
But then what also about the money? Chris Rock's got a really interesting stand-up routine when he talks about... Chris Rock has this thing where he repeats things over and over and over again.
Right.
Goes, I'm not talking about being rich. I'm talking about being wealthy. And he talks about wealthy people and rich people are different. And the way he describes it is the wealthy person, you know Shaquille O'Neal, basketball player?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the examples he gives is it's the wealthy person signs Shaq's check. Right. Shaq is rich, but it's the wealthy person who signs Shaq's check.
Right.
And I think the context he was putting it was black versus white. You know, there's no rich black, there's no wealthy black people, because even though Shaq is rich, it's the wealthy person who signs his check.
Wow.
I'm wondering in this industry as well. I mean, obviously they're companies and they're big companies, so they're not really an owner, but people who sign the checks, or even if there was a female studio, the person who signed the check for that studio may probably still be male as well, because so that would still be an element of that kind of, if you want to use the word patriarchy, or if you want to use the word certainly male dominance or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that seems quite a long road to haul.
It's a long road, and I think like there can sometimes be this expectation of this is something that can be fixed just by changing people's minds. You know, it's like, oh, if somebody knows that we need more female producers, then that's something that can just happen.
Yeah.
But where are those producers going to come from? You know, it's like most of these male producers that are doing really awesome have been doing it since they were 12, you know, and it's like that is the age that it needs to start at. So they need role models that look like them, you know, so they can see, oh, that's the path that I could take.
Yeah.
These like young females, and that's going to take a few generations. So it's a generational thing, because eventually, if there was 75% females in a studio and 25% males, it would be so cool if nobody batted an eyelid. Like that would, like, imagine it's like, oh, that's fine. And if it was the other way around, you know, or
Jace has just bought something out. What do you got there, Jace?
So yeah, it's just a billboard thing that they were saying the Power 100 every year in the music industry, and it represents, you know, live tech, blah, 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 blah. In 2008, it was 17% of that 100. So yeah, 17 of those 100 people were women.
Do you have the list? 10. It might be interesting to see, because of that 17%, how many of them are like? Because if they're artists, I mean, how many of them are Taylor Swift and Katy Perry?
I'd say it would be more like record execs and things.
But it did say recording as well. I just wonder if, like, you know, of those 17 out of 100, if the majority of them were artists versus the majority of men being execs, that might say something as well.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Look, Gaga, Taylor Swift's in there. Janet Jackson, Paula Cole, Sheryl Crow, Lauryn Hill. God, Lauryn Hill, where did she go? We were just talking earlier.
Interesting.
We were talking earlier today about they go Lord on the historic 2018 Grammys. No. Yeah.
So yeah, that. But when you're talking about there, that's about the Grammys for producing.
Wow.
And that it's never gone to women, but these people have been credited as working on it. But
yeah.
So there's never been a woman producer of winning a Grammy.
And it's the same in the film industry, like hardly any women directors or.
There's actually then because I'm a filmmaker, I can speak to this. Like,
this is Jason's expertise.
Here we go.
There's a lot of the New Zealand, lots of the guilds in New Zealand are really trying to remedy it. In particular, because I have a friend who I follow on Instagram and so forth, and met at university. She's a female director of photography, so which is the fancy name for cameraman in the film industry. So there's not very many DOPs. The DOP camera technical, just like in the music industry, the technical departments are massive sausage fests, because gaffers, lighting, sound, camera department. I can think of, thinking back, I can actually remember women in the camera department in the bigger jobs I've worked on, because it was unusual.
Right.
Exactly. And they weren't
Imagine when you don't bat an eyelid.
I don't think I've actually worked with a female DOP before.
Wow.
The highest ranking tech I saw on a film shoot that I've worked on myself was a first AC, so first assistant camera. I think they operated a little bit, but and so the New Zealand Cinematographers Guild, they're having initiatives about about placing women in roles as interning and being mentored by males,
right?
Because that's who is currently they're the gatekeepers at the moment. But
there's
a real drive to get more female DOPs, because, as you say, a female DOP is going to have a very different eye to a male DOP.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's going to create a whole different perspective.
You may want, and it would be great to get to a point where you can actually just go, I do want a male DOP because it's a really masculine gaze in this film. Or you go, I want a female because I want a female gaze in this film. And I have a lot of very, very strong female friends in Auckland who are producing and directing and really going for it, but they are the exception still. But it's getting better.
Right.
But yeah.
Do you think it needs to be 50-50? I mean, I think that men and women typically have I'm not saying that men can't have female attributes and do female jobs and women can't have male attributes and do male jobs, but there is, I think, pretty clear evidence, maybe this will get your feminist heckles up.
I don't have those anymore.
Okay. that across the board, there are some different skill sets that sit better with the male brain to the female brain.
Going back into the film industry, I doubt even in maybe 50 to 100 years, depending on unless there's genetic changes within the human race, I think you're still going to have 90% of gaffers and grips are going to be male, because grips and gaffers are very physical roles. They're lifting huge lights. They're lifting, gripping and carrying huge amounts of equipment. And so they have to be physically strong, as well as being technically strong.
And I was just thinking about, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I was just thinking, this is the funny thing, maybe I'm wrong because I'm buying into the stereotype, and maybe the stereotype's wrong. But I would think that my thought is that maybe that, knobs and buttons and playing with sliders and stuff is more attractive to a male brain than a female brain. I don't know.
It's funny because, that might be what a lot of people think now, but I remember reading an article and it was about when women were allowed to play in the orchestra. And I think they were first allowed to play, I can't remember, it was something like they weren't allowed to play violins because they were too masculine.
Really?
Or something like that. And it was an instrument that I was like, I see that as a really feminine instrument. And they were like, no, the violins are too masculine. Wow. And we look at that now and we're like, that's fucking weird. No, it's not like, and pink used to be a masculine color. And I just don't know. And I think, I must say, when I'm producing music, yeah, there's knobs and buttons, but 95% of it is really creative.
Yeah, true.
And it's expressing yourself, you know, and in the same article, it was talking about women drummers, and it was saying that something about women aren't attracted to that instrument. And I'm thinking of all the awesome women drummers that I know that just, I don't know, and they bring something so different. I'm like, well, maybe they're not attracted to playing it like, I don't know, John Bonham, but they might be attracted to playing it the way they're going to play it. And, you know, they're going to bring something new. It would be so stupid to say that women should come and do all these jobs and do them exactly the same way that guys did them, because why would we need them doing them?
Yeah,
you know?
I think you're 100%. I was just having a look at my, there's actually a female drummer that I follow on.
My favourite drummer in the world is a female. Her
Yeah.
name's Maddie Packins Craig. I've talked about her about 5 minutes ago. And she just, I don't know, she plays incredibly, you know? And I don't know if she plays differently from a man. I just know that I love how she plays, you know?
Something like, yeah, because you're right. And I mean, maybe my mindset of knobs and buttons and sliders is because I'm acclimatized to the current norm,
Right.
and it's a matter of changing the norm. Not actually that what I said was accurate. It's that it's about the norm needs to be changed. Or
Right.
no, I wouldn't actually say the norm needs to be changed. I'd say there needs to be an opportunity provided for the norm to change should society go that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it might actually be that, as Jay said with the example of strength, there's some jobs that are still 90% men. In 20 years' time, there are some jobs that are still 90% women. But if somehow we can get society, maybe this is impossible, implausible, impossible, improbable, to a position where none of those jobs are stigmatized to be men or women jobs,
Yeah.
which means there's the freedom for men or women to do them and the expectation that anyone can do them. If they still then sway 70% one way, then who cares?
Yes.
Because if there's every same opportunity and expectation afforded to any person, then actually, if it does sway, if there are more female nurses than male nurses and all those opportunities are there, then that's fine. If there are more male, grips than females, then that's fine if all the opportunities are there. As if there's not the opportunities for the other gender, other sex to do those jobs, or there's a stigma. Like, I think it'd probably be fair to say, looking around to see if you agree, that there might, well, there certainly was 20 years ago, there might be a bit of a stigma still with a male nurse and what that
Right.
kind of associates with a male.
And they get laughed at because they're not being masculine. And that's exactly what I was saying, like seeing femininity as such a weakness instead of that guy has a fucking hard job. I wouldn't want that job, you know? Like, man, imagine being a nurse. It's such a noble thing to do.
When was I was on a New Zealand flight back from Auckland. Actually, it wasn't the last time. It was a couple of months ago, I think. And the dude in the row, same row as me, but on the next across the aisle, started having like he was sweating and he had heart issues and stuff. And they put a call out saying, "Is anybody a nurse?" And the last person that you'd think on the entire aircraft stood up and said, "Yeah, so I asked for a doctor and said, stood up and said, I'm a registered nurse." And he was like this big, butch looking dude, and just sat with the dude and nursed him and like looked after him and asked, and took control of the situation. And it was just interesting because I think at the time I was watching this TV show called Nurse Jackie, which has got a big butch. He's actually gay, I think, but he's a big guy, like Scandinavian looking dude, nurse. And yeah, it's actually interesting to go back to the film industry. Like, the film industry is a real microcosm of femininity and masculinity within society, because the roles are very defined. Makeup, wardrobe, all females normally. Grip, gaff, technical.
Even really? I would have thought makeup. I thought makeup would have, like, especially with.
I should preface it by saying on the sets I've worked on and seen, it's very, very predominantly a male. Men are doing technical, women are doing makeup, wardrobe, and even art department's actually so often male too. It's a very male. The film industry is very male dominated.
Right. Yeah.
I just sent you a link to my favourite drummer playing my favourite drumming song.
Oh, here we go.
So we should have a little look at it. Hopefully we won't get bumped off YouTube for doing it. But there's I remember Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yep.
Will Smith, when his movie started, we have to listen to the start of it because it smells like Teen Spirit.
Hello.
So
Now you
give us a bit of
Hey, what's up,
volume.
guys? Real
Oh,
quick
you might
before I
want to
get into
skip through all
video,
this.
I have a few notes.
And he gave his he sold his younger cousin violin to a second-hand store, and of course his uncle and auntie got angry with him, and he bought her a set of drums. And one of the lines was something like, girl who can play the drums can write her own check, sort of thing. I think about this when I see this kind of thing. I mean, it's probably enough so we don't get knocked off YouTube so much. But it's something. There's something
though, that the drummer that you're modelling it off, that she's modelling herself off.
Dave Grohl
was Dave Grohl.
He's
Yeah.
like
Dave Grohl
so
is self-proclaimed
meaty.
to have no idea what he's doing on the drums. He basically self-taught and just did it. He had a drum lesson once, I think he said. And he said the drum tutor said that's not how you do it, and he's like, okay, well, lesson's over then. Basically, this is me paraphrasing. He basically said that's not how you play the drums. He's like, well, that's how I play the drums.
Well, she's not necessarily basing her drumming on his.
No,
She's
no,
just doing his
just
cover.
just
So you go and look at
tip
her page. Bring her page up. We must well tell people who she is. I forget her name. She's got like a Italian
I'm trying to
name.
find my mouse pointer. There it is.
There you go.
Shiano?
Yeah.
Shiano?
There you go. Really interesting, and got some original stuff there as well. It's a really interesting watch. So she does her own
That's
stuff.
awesome.
Yeah, she's cool.
Yeah.
So there
And
you
it's
go.
amazing because her point of difference there is that that's Maddie. Check her out. She's so cool. Multi-instrumentalist. She really is. She plays everything.
Really?
She's a producer. And
Hate those people.
I know. She's so good at everything. Yeah. She's so cool. But Maddie and I have been on tour together, I think.
So is she your
couple
drummer?
times. Yes. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
yeah. And we have so many horror stories. Well, I don't know. There's something about live sound that is so masculine. And as well as going to venues, often you're working with some very obnoxious people. Like we'll walk into the room and Maddie will bring her drums and people will say stuff like, is that your boyfriend's drums? And she'd be like, no. She has a wife, so it's like, definitely not. Definitely not. And like gig will finish and I quite like this bit and I'll say like, oh, can I help you like wind up the chords? And they're like, no, you wouldn't know how to do it. It's like, I have a degree in studio production, so I definitely know how to wind a chord, but I get to go home early because I don't know how to do that apparently. And I went to a gig, I was playing Winter Festival and we did like the early slot and then the band that came on later, I was in the tent out the back picking up all my gear and the guy goes, oh, are you going to help us carry all our gear back to the car? And I was like, this is mine.
So the patronising nature of it.
Yeah, and you just feel so unwelcome. Like that's the thing. Like it would be so nice if the next generation of musicians can go on a tour of New Zealand and not be so frustrated at sound check because like people just like we bring a lot of synths, so we have a lot of chords. And people just assuming you don't know how to use your own gear and telling you why you're doing it wrong. And, it's just so irritating.
I wanted to say maybe we just have to wait for those people to die, but are they actually old people? Or
No.
like are they actually still people that are younger? That are
Usually they're like 30s and 40s because after that people are usually like burnt out and go do something else with their lives, you know?
They've done too much heroin and then
Stuff like that. Yeah. So, not particularly old. Definitely men.
So we can't just wait it out then.
No. Yeah. And they'll just say just things that make you feel really unwelcome, you know? And Maddie's got a doctorate in studio production.
Wow.
And she is,
So you've got like a master's and she's got a doctorate.
Yeah. And we go
So
to
you
the,
actually probably know more than everybody else there.
Probably. And they just sort of like treat you like such an idiot. Maddie and I have got so used to it now that we're like, oh yeah, we don't know what we're doing. And we get them to do all of it, which is really actually quite great.
I'm quite grateful that you haven't asked me to give you more 2K in your cans or something like that.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
And then so you let them set it all up and then you go and correct all their errors and make it sound better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, we do like to pull out the some, like if they're being particularly obnoxious, we might use some real massive lingo that they probably wouldn't know, and that's quite fun.
That I can admit, I love seeing that sort of stuff happen. Just being like, you know, just I'd love to see that because I've had occasion when I've caught myself being that guy,
Right.
not necessarily a woman, but just people that I don't think know as much as me. Even guys, notice I'm not necessarily being sexist. Even sometimes I am.
Well, it's an unconscious thing. That's exactly it. I'm not blaming these.
Getting put in your
people.
place is just awesome, because I've been put in my place once. I remember having a conversation with this woman at a party and just being like, we're having a conversation about children or something, and I said, "Oh, what would you know about like kids?" Not necessarily in those words, but basically that was the crux. She said, "Oh, I'm a pediatrician."
There you go.
I was like, that's what they call these days a clapback.
Yep. She wins.
I am a pediatrician. That's how it works. So my kids do that to me. Every word, they clap back at me all the time.
Oh wow. Yeah. Well, it's good to have somebody questioning you, because I'm so fascinated to look back at now and be like, wow, that was whack. That thing that I thought was so normal, But you're also really young. Yeah.
So it's interesting that you're young, yet you're looking back already thinking, about how you've evolved.
Wow, yeah. Well, I have a really interesting story, actually. So a couple of years ago, Feastock put up their, Feastock, it's a local festival here on Fee Street. Sort of indie Dunedin bands play there. It's really cool. And they put up their lineup, and out of 19 bands, there was 2 females, and not female lead people. There was 2 females, I think.
Like 2 females in all of the bands.
Yep.
Right.
Something like that.
One was playing the keys and doing BVs.
That's 100% right.
I told you.
Yeah. And then one was on a violin. I think that's how it went. And so there was some real anger about that. And I wrote this post on my Facebook page that went a little bit viral, the most viral that I've ever gone. So that was very exciting for me. And it was sort of explaining what it's like to be a female musician. Mm-hmm. And I sort of explained that when I was at high school, I was in, my favorite band was Led Zeppelin. Mm-hmm. And I was in all male bands. Usually it would be me and 5 other guys. And that was seen as really normal. And I remember thinking, like, why would I have a female musician? There's no females in Led Zeppelin. It was sort of like, no, they won't be able to do it. Like, I honestly thought that, mm-hmm. which is so disturbing to think that I had that thought. And I sort of admitted that in this post. And I was like, it wasn't a conscious thought that I had, but I know that that's what I felt, And then I got to university and started to sort of explore these ideas, and was just so surprised at myself, that I had been so blind, that I hadn't seen how toxic those thoughts were that I was having, and the opportunities that I could have missed out on. Like, most of my class, my music class at school, were girls. Right. And then it got to uni and it became less, and then you get into the music industry and it becomes less. It's not an encouraging place for a female, unless you're a singer, because, I don't know, they're easy to push around in the front, I guess. I don't know why that is. But like female drummers or female guitarists, there's more female guitarists now that I learned that actually, I think in RockQuest this year, which is a youth performing competition, there was more female guitarists than male guitarists. I'm pretty sure that's what they said. So that's getting better. Female bass players, all these sorts of things. It's just hard because you don't feel welcome, and you're looking around at all these bands and these idols, and Radiohead doesn't have any girls in it. Nirvana doesn't have any girls in it. Foo Fighters don't have any girls in it, and it's just, there's plenty of bands that do, but these like major bands don't. And if you go and watch live music, like at festivals, it's a huge problem that most of the bands are male, and you talk to the festival organizers and they're who can pull crowds, and it's just... So
it's a commercial decision for the organizer.
Yeah, but hey, if they put girls on, in a couple of years it would be the girls pulling crowds. The only reason they're not is because they haven't been put in these positions.
You know what? This is where the debate will go completely hypothetical, but it's an interesting one to have. And look, we've been going for... gosh, who knows how long. This is like a TARDIS in here. We've been going for nearly an hour and a half.
Wow, have we?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we'll wrap up shortly, but it's a fascinating thing because it makes me think about female sport as well.
Oh yeah.
You know, and how the money's in male sport primarily. 99%. Although, you know, you look at things like the Silver Ferns and obviously their male counterparts earn nothing and they earn a better income. But generally it's the other way around and they say the same thing. And I have to say, you know, I've played basketball for 20 years and I watch basketball. I enjoy watching the WNBA for the skill, but the NBA is what excites me, and it's the more athletic ability and the jumping higher and the dunking harder and the physicality of it. So do we, and I'm not saying it's a parallel with music because, you know, anyone can hit those drums as hard and create that sound, male or female. But I wonder, again, is it that we need to bring women into that music scene? We need to have a female version of the Foo Fighters, or is it just how? Is it just how it is? And I'm not being very clear on this. I guess what I'm saying is, in part, is it a bad thing that there's not a female Foo Fighters? Is that a natural progression to have a female Foo Fighters? If there was a female Foo Fighters out there, would there be fewer opportunities, or would their musical prowess get them to the same position? And if they were in that position, would they have the same following? You know what I mean? So I think about the sporting analogy. The All Blacks versus the Black Ferns. They're a professional team, they're an international team, they've won World Cups, the female version of it, but the rugby in itself is less enjoyable for many to watch because of the physical prowess. The hits aren't as hard, the tries aren't as fast, that kind of thing. So is that about society going, it's our fault because we don't appreciate the skill set of women's sport without the massive hits, or is that basically fair enough?
Well, I don't know, because I don't watch a lot of sport.
No, I know that's my.
I do have a thought on this anyway. I don't watch a lot of sport because I don't relate to it at all. I watch it and I'm like, that's so violent. I don't like it, you know. But I watched a female rugby game once and I cried because I just thought they were such. I feel emotional now. They were just like. I couldn't believe that their bodies could do that, you know, and it was so inspiring to see it. And I feel exactly the same way when I watch Serena Williams, you know, I just think, wow, what an inspiration. Like
greatest ever.
Yeah. And I don't know, like, I'm not consciously thinking, oh, she's a woman that makes her more like me. It's just, it's something.
Did you see the study about out of the UK, where they asked 100, They asked a whole bunch of men on the street in the UK, do you think you could score a point against Serena Williams?
Oh my God.
Do you want to have a guess what the percentage of men who thought they could score a point against
How many?
I'd say most of them thought they probably could.
Well, it's not that bad, but it was 8%.
Oh,
so 8% of men thought that they could score a point against Serena Williams.
Oh, that's probably fair. 1 point.
A point against Serena Williams, score against. Do you think so? You think that 8% of men could score a point against? I'm talking about the general public, I'm not talking about tennis players. I'm talking about the general public.
Sure. So I mean, I guess I think about. I play tennis, so I think I could possibly score out of. You know, a 3-set game that's got 6 games. I could probably score 1 point against her. Maybe only 1 point, but that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
I want you to play tennis with Serena Williams.
Well, I think about the other side. I think like if I played LeBron James in a game of one-on-one pickup, I'd be confident I could score 1 point. Because even if I missed 90% of my shots, I'd hit 1-3 eventually. That is nowhere near him, sort of thing. I thought you were going to say something. I mean, look. So you think 8% is too high? You think it would be what, 1%, 0%?
I don't know. I just sort of segue into like because
I thought you were going to say like 60% of guys thought that they could score against. Like the arrogance.
I thought
8% was scary.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, maybe
I just saw this video the other day that was kind of a response to it, and like so there's like there's 2 regular dudes opposite Serena Williams.
Yeah,
you just got to watch.
That's dude perfect.
You just got to watch their her power and stuff.
Yeah, I got it. But I mean, one.
She's loving it. She's like, shame on
so
you.
There's like 4 dudes. And
she hit him.
Like,
yeah. Do you know who the dudes are? That's a group called Dude Perfect. Yeah, see, Dude Perfect. They do viral internet videos.
But those guys are fit, athletic looking dudes too. Like, they're not big, average looking Joes. They look like they could probably actually do some running. And there's like 6 of them, and none of them can even hit the ball.
Look, I get it. I mean, maybe I'm being a little bit finicky, but I'm going like, she's going to double fault once in a game.
Yeah, but that's not scoring. Because I thought about that too, and I was like, yeah, but that's not. Look at this. She's hitting the tennis ball and moving targets and knocking.
She's amazing.
Because tennis isn't just returning the ball. Tennis, she could put that ball on one side of the court to the other, and then and get back there. She would have to make a mistake for you to score a ball. Yeah.
The other thing that's interesting about this, and this comes back to the men and women in sport, and maybe this is different from the music industry, right? Because anybody, however you would measure it, whatever the metric would be, anybody, male, female, other, could be, quote, the best musician in the world.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. Because sex, gender's got nothing to do with musical ability. Sports, it's different. I think it was, what's his name? We talked about it the other day, the bad boy, the brat of tennis, McEnroe.
Johnny McEnroe.
We said in an interview that, Serena was the best female tennis player in the world. And the interviewer said, well, why don't you just say the best tennis player in the world? And he says, well, because she's not. And they reckon that if you got every professional tennis player that had ever been, and you list male and female all up, the greatest ever female tennis player would come in at about number 1,500. So 1,500 men would be ahead of her. Like, so that someone who's never made number one in the world as a male would still be better than her. There's been lots of games where the best female tennis player in the world, or a top 5 female tennis player, has played like number 50 of the men, and the men have dominated them. And it's just about the power, basically.
Because the skill's got nothing to do with it. It's all about power. Is that?
Yeah,
right?
I think so. I mean, you're serving 30, 40 Ks faster now. You're hitting the ball harder, that sort of thing as well. Different in music though, so that's why it's not a fair parallel.
Right.
I mean, maybe you can technically hit the drums a bit harder, but probably that 20% when they're mic'd up is not going to make a big difference.
If you're played with a lot of drummers, you want the drummer to be able to play. I think the skill of a drummer is being able to hit the drum 20% softer.
Yeah. It's definitely not about hard.
So we've lost our path a little bit on this part of this conversation, but we were talking about festivals having more, female Foo Fighter type groups.
I don't know what the percentages is now, but last time I looked at it in 2017, it was like 85% of festival bills are male.
So the question is it part of the industry keeping the female musicians down, or is there equal opportunity for a female Foo Fighters as there is a male Foo Fighters, or a female whatever, an Adele versus a Sam Smith, or whatever it is? Because if there is equal opportunity, you'd have to say that 85% is circumstantial. If there's not equal opportunity, then that's a problem.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, oh my goodness, this is so beautiful. Oh my God, are you ready?
I'm ready.
It ties back in to that if you're taller, you're more likely to be a basketball player.
Yeah.
We are molded through things that happen around us. Let's say Molly Devine's in a band at high school and she's got 5 guys, and you're a really awesome female drummer and you want to be part of it, but Molly has this weird subconscious thing that you're not going to be as good because you don't look like John Bonham. Then you're not going to be in the band, and because you're not in the band, you might think you're not as good. You might give up drums and go do something else. There's all these sorts of things, and it's not. It is about opportunities in the industry. It is, and like it, that is something that the industry is really working on. They've got all sorts of initiatives to help that, but it is even more in a lot of ways in people's mindsets, and
that's also saying that the messages we're putting into our kids and stuff, even from each other, from kid to kid, is one of the things that then generates that female drummer, that then gives them the opportunity when they're 25 to form with their other female friends, the female Foo Fighters, to get the opportunity. So that's actually a societal issue.
Yeah.
So we've come right back after having I don't think you turned up today and talked for 40 minutes about feminism, did you?
No, I did not.
That goes all the way back to the start and basically goes, as a society, we need to make a space and a place for everybody.
Yeah. But
we're talking about women here. So for women to be seen and treated and expected to have the same opportunities in music, in society, and that not seem to be weird and outside the norm, which will then later on give them a chance to be the female Foo Fighters on main stage at whatever festival.
100%.
To be honest, though, if they're going to start the female Foo Fighters, they first have to start the female Nirvana.
Yes, exactly right. They've got to go through the whole progress.
Stop, because I was just about to make a joke about then the lead female singer would have to. No, so we're not.
Oh, that's getting dark.
Yeah, we're not going
That's
down.
getting
And
dark.
that sounds like.
I thought I'd just throw this out there. This is my little girl.
Look at her.
Rocking the Nirvana.
She looks cool.
I know. Look, I've got my
Rolling
Rolling
Stones.
Stones on as well. That was just by chance. I didn't even think about it.
There you go. There you go.
All right, guys. Hey, I think we're done now. Your EP's out next month. How do people find out more about you? How about people find out more about it?
So please follow me. I've got really into Instagram in the past 3 weeks. I'm very into it. So please follow me on Instagram. It's Molly Divine Music. And I'm also on Facebook. Again, that's facebook.com/Molly Divine Music. And you can also check out my website. So that's mollydivine.com. And if you go on my Instagram and you click on that little smart arrow at the top there in my bio, you will get to the links to the song, so that can take you to Spotify, iTunes, all those sorts of places.
And are you putting out your EP as a physical unit? Will it be purchasable, or is it going to be digital only?
It's going to be digital only at first. I'm going on a little, hopefully a tour in the spring and summer. And depending on how it all goes, I will see if I will make physical copies. But I do love having the physical copy in some sort of way.
Make sure you make an LP at some stage just to have it.
That'll be so
pressed onto an LP.
fantastic.
What is it? What's the guy from the White Stripes? Jack
White.
Jack White. He's got his own press. He's got a big recording studio, vinyl press, and
Oh, wow.
I want to say New Orleans, so it's probably completely wrong. Seattle maybe, but
Right.
he presses like old school pressing vinyl. You
Oh,
can
wow.
record literally straight onto like a vinyl master
Oh,
as well if
wow.
you want to. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
There you go.
wow.
Just go meet Jack White.
I'm going to follow him on Instagram and see
There
if
you
he
go.
wants to be my friend.
And then you can open for Sam Smith.
Yeah.
And then you can be a part of the female Foo Fighters.
It's so funny that I'm saying I want to meet Sam Smith, because last year would have been like, I was really into this year I've been focusing so much on pop music, and so it's like last year it would have been definitely Tom York or Robert Plant, but this
Joan
year things change. It's Sam Smith, as well as Tom York and Robert Plant. I don't know,
I'm sure.
any of them would do.
I'm sure as you have no control over your life, it will all just happen magically around you.
Yeah, exactly. Look at how beautifully tied up.
All right. Hey, thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much for having me.
It
It
was
was
fun.
awesome.